You think you know about bad rulers? You've heard of tyrants and mad kings. But you don't know Caligula. Forget everything you've learned about the Roman Empire, because you're about to meet the emperor whose reign was so terrifyingly insane, it makes other dictators look like reasonable politicians. An emperor who declared himself a living god and had conversations with the moon. A man whose cruelty was so bottomless, he fed prisoners to lions because he was bored. A ruler so detached from reality that he not only gave his favorite horse a palace with servants, but he also planned to make that horse a consul, the highest official in Rome. This isn't just history. This is a journey into the mind of a monster. A mind so broken by power that it very nearly shattered one of the greatest empires the world has ever known. These are the shocking truths about Caligula that your history books were too afraid to print. Let's start with the most infamous story, because the reality is even more insane than the legend. Caligula didn't just love his horse, Incitatus. He worshipped him. This wasn't a pet, it was a deity in equine form. Incitatus lived in a stable made of polished marble and ate from a manger carved from pure ivory. He wore a collar studded with priceless jewels and was draped in Tyrian purple, the color reserved for the emperor himself. He had a dedicated staff of 18 servants to cater to his every whim. The night before a race, Caligula would enforce absolute silence in the neighborhood under penalty of death, so Incitatus could get a good night's sleep. But that's just the beginning. Caligula would host lavish dinner parties in the horse's name, inviting Rome's most powerful senators to dine with the animal in his personal palace. He fed Incitatus oats mixed with gold flakes. And then came the ultimate insult to all of humanity. Caligula announced his intention to make Incitatus a consul. This wasn't just madness. It was a calculated act of pure contempt. He was showing the powerful Senate of Rome that their job was so meaningless, a horse could do it. He was spitting in the face of tradition, law, and every single person in the empire. Caligula's madness wasn't just political, it was deeply, horribly personal. His family life was a toxic swamp of incest, paranoia, and murder that would make a soap opera writer blush. He had 3 sisters, and ancient historians allege he was engaged in incestuous relationships with all of them. But his obsession was with his sister Drusilla. He treated her not as a sibling, but as a wife and a goddess. When she died suddenly, Caligula's mind completely shattered. He declared a period of public mourning so extreme that it became a capital crime to laugh, to bathe, or even to eat dinner with your own family. He had her deified, forcing the Roman people to worship her as a god. This wasn't grief. It was a narcissistic rage projected onto an entire empire. He once forced a man to divorce his beautiful wife simply because he heard about her grandmother's beauty and wanted her for himself. He treated human beings like objects to be collected, used, and discarded. You don't learn this in history class, but Caligula's cruelty was a form of entertainment for him. He didn't just execute his enemies, he savored their suffering. He forced prominent senators to run for miles in front of his chariot as a form of humiliation. He would invite a father to dine with him hours after forcing that same man to watch his son's execution. Once, during a gladiator game, the prison ran out of criminals to be thrown to the wild beasts. Caligula, bored, simply turned to a section of the crowd and ordered his guards to throw them all into the arena instead. He famously said, "Remember that I have the right to do anything to anybody." He believed it. He declared himself a living god and demanded to be worshipped, even ordering a statue of himself to be erected in the sacred temple in Jerusalem. For Caligula, cruelty wasn't a tool of power. Power was a tool for cruelty. You'd think a self-proclaimed god would be invincible. You would be wrong. A man who rules by fear eventually makes everyone his enemy, including the very men paid to protect him. The Praetorian Guard, his own elite bodyguards, had enough. The final straw was personal. Caligula relentlessly taunted a high-ranking officer named Cassius Chaerea for having a weak, effeminate voice. That constant humiliation festered until it exploded into a conspiracy. On January 24, 41 AD, in a dark underground corridor of his own palace, they cornered him. Chaerea struck the first blow. Then the others joined in. The man who called himself a god was stabbed over 30 times, dying on the cold stone floor like a dog. The chaos didn't end there. The assassins stormed the palace, murdering Caligula's wife and his infant daughter, smashing the child against a wall to ensure the monster's bloodline was extinguished forever. Caligula's reign of terror lasted less than 4 years, but it was a masterclass in how absolute power can utterly corrupt a human soul. He wasn't just a bad emperor, he was a black hole of narcissism and sadism that threatened to swallow Rome itself. His legacy is a horrifying reminder that sometimes, the greatest monsters in history aren't soldiers or conquerors, but the ones who sit on a throne and declare themselves gods. If these dark secrets of the Roman Empire made you realize how much history has been hidden from you, hit that subscribe button. Because the horrifying truths are always more fascinating than the sanitized lies.